I want to go right now to Andrea Mitchell, who's been watching along with me, our chief foreign affairs correspondent. Andrea, what did you note in the president's remarks?
Well, it was a fascinating combination of the president's long-standing objections to the Obama nuclear deal, the Iran deal that he got out of in May of 2018, and blaming the previous administration for financing the missiles, he said, that were fired by Iran last night. No retaliation, no military retaliation from the U.S., but sounding tough. And, of course, what he said about Soleimani, saying that his hands were drenched with blood. But for all the tough talk and the threat of new economic sanctions, and it's hard to imagine what has not been sanctioned, because they've already sanctioned the central bank, the Federal Reserve, basically, of Iran, so that no one can move money on the international exchanges through Iran. Iran has been crippled economically by these sanctions as they've stepped them up. But the other thing is, by saying that, again, as he has said for years, that in the Iran nuclear deal that he provided, that the Obama administration provided $150 billion, that's just not factually correct. That was unfreezing the frozen Iranian assets that had been frozen since 1979, when they took the hostages, the 52 hostages, and took over our U.S. embassy. So the Iran nuclear deal did allow Iran to get back its own assets, and that is a lot of the money that he is describing.
All right, Andrea, let me go to Kristen Welker right now, who's in the room there at the White House, or was at the White House and watching along with us. I noted that the president, once again, defending his decision to go after Soleimani. I didn't necessarily hear the word imminent threat when he talked about the threat. I know there's been some mixed messaging on that issue.
That's a really important point, Lester, and you're absolutely right. President Trump gave a very robust defense of his decision to take out Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani. At the same time, he really stressed Soleimani's background, the fact that his hands are drenched with blood, the blood of Americans, the blood of his fellow Iranians. And yet he didn't talk about what exactly that imminent threat was. What did it look like? Just a day earlier, his defense secretary said that there was, in fact, an imminent threat. He was tracking it within just days. But we didn't hear that kind of language from President Trump. So the question becomes, as we look forward to the rest of this day, what, if any, evidence will senior administration officials will they provide to the full Congress when they brief them later on today? We know that the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense will be among the briefers. You have Democrats and some Republicans saying that essentially the administration should declassify the intelligence that is behind the president's decision to go after Soleimani in the first place. So far, the administration has said they haven't made a decision about that. But Lester, you can bet they are going to get pressured on that. I would make one more point. You heard President Trump say that Iran seems to be standing down. The question becomes, is the president standing down militarily? He put the focus on sanctions. I tried to ask him as he was leaving if he had ruled out any type of military retaliation. He didn't answer any of our questions, but you can bet that those will be among the questions that lawmakers will have later on today. Lester.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.